Children, come here and listen. Today, I want to share a very special story with you. This isn't just any story, and it's not about a fairy tale or something that happened long ago. This is the real story of a boy named Felix Baumgartner. You might not know him yet, but Felix Baumgartner is someone who showed the world what real courage and big dreams can do. This isn't just about him jumping from somewhere high or becoming famous. It's about how someone can dream of something impossible and with courage, turn it into reality. I want you to listen closely because Felix's journey is not just his own. It's a lesson for everyone. His story teaches us that dreams aren't just meant for sleeping at night. Dreams are those hopes and wishes you keep in your heart, no matter how small you are or how big your fear is. Why am I telling you this story? Because one day you'll have your own dreams. Maybe you'll feel scared or think they're too big for you. But I want you to remember Felix Baumgartner and how he proved that even the biggest, wildest dreams can come true if you believe in yourself and have the courage to try. So sit close, listen carefully, and let's begin with Felix's story, a story about daring to dream and having the courage to chase it. Now, let me tell you a little more about Felix Baumgartner. Felix was never an ordinary boy. From a young age, he always had that special spark in his eyes. He wasn't just interested in toys or the usual things other children liked. No, Felix was different. He was always curious, always thinking, always asking questions that would make even grown-ups stop and wonder. Sometimes he would come to me and ask the most surprising things. I remember him looking at the sky and saying, "Grandma, how high do you think a person can go?" Or sometimes, "Grandma, do you think it's possible to touch the stars?" His questions were never small. They were always about what's possible, what's out there, what limits could be broken. Felix wasn't satisfied with simple answers either. If I said the sky's the limit, he would smile and say, "But what's beyond the sky?" You see, he was the kind of boy who wanted to see for himself, who believed that if nobody had done something yet, maybe it was just waiting for him to try. Some children are content to stay on the ground, but Felix Baumgartner always wanted to go higher. He wanted to know how far a human being could push themselves, how much courage it would take to reach places no one else had ever been. And that's what made Felix different. He was a dreamer, yes, but more than that, he was determined to find the answer to his own question. "Grandma, what is the greatest limit a human can reach?" Felix was never shy about his dreams. He would sit by my side and talk about all the things he wanted to do, all the places he wanted to see, and all the records he wanted to break. His eyes would shine when he spoke about the sky, the clouds, and the mysteries above our heads. Sometimes, other people would laugh at his ideas. They would say, "Felix, that's impossible," or "Why don't you just play like the other kids?" But Felix never let their words make him small. Whenever I saw him feeling doubtful or a little discouraged, I would gently remind him, "Felix Baumgartner, if you can dream it, you can do it." I truly believed in those words, and I wanted him to believe in them too. I told him that dreams are not just for bedtime or for stories. They are for living, for chasing, for turning into something real. Sometimes he would ask, "But Grandma, what if I'm not brave enough? What if I fail?" And I would hold his hand and say, "Being brave doesn't mean you're never scared, Felix. It means you do what you believe in, even if you are scared." Everyone who did something great in this world was afraid at some point, but they kept going. They tried, and that's why we remember them. Felix would listen carefully, sometimes nodding, sometimes deep in thought. And then one day he looked at me with the most determined look I'd ever seen and said, "Grandma, one day I want to go higher than anyone else ever has." It wasn't just a dream in his eyes, it was a promise. From that day on, I watched Felix chase that dream. Every time someone told him to give up, he would remember what I'd said. Every time the world looked too big or too hard, he would close his eyes, take a breath, and tell himself, "If I can dream it, I can do it." Felix Baumgartner wasn't just chasing the sky. He was chasing the edge of what everyone thought was possible, and he was determined to make his dream come true. There was a time when even Felix Baumgartner's confidence started to tremble. One evening, as he sat quietly, I noticed the excitement in his eyes was clouded by doubt. I asked him what was on his mind, and he finally opened up. Grandma, he said softly, sometimes I wonder if my dreams are too big. What if I try and fail? What if everyone laughs at me? What if I'm just not brave enough to do something nobody has ever done before? I listened carefully, and then I smiled and told him, Felix, you're not alone in feeling afraid. Even the strongest people get scared. But you know what sets the brave apart from the rest? It's not that they never feel fear. It's that they don't let it stop them. That night, I decided to put my thoughts into words and wrote Felix a letter. I wanted him to have something to hold on to, something to read whenever doubt tried to creep in. In my letter, I wrote, Son, everyone feels fear. True courage is moving forward despite fear. If you can overcome fear, you can do anything. I told him that fear is a part of every great journey. The bigger your dreams, the bigger your fears may seem. But every step you take through fear brings you closer to your dreams. I wanted him to know that failure isn't the end. It's just another lesson, another step. Felix kept that letter. I saw him reading it many times after that, especially when things felt difficult or impossible. He began to understand that being brave doesn't mean you never doubt yourself. It means you believe in your dream more than you believe in your fear. That message stayed with Felix Baumgartner all his life, shaping every decision and every leap he would one day take. As the years went by, life carried us in different directions. I had my own family to care for, daily chores to manage, and responsibilities that filled my days. Felix Baumgartner grew up quickly, and he set out to follow his own path in the world. Little by little, our meetings became less frequent. There were no more afternoons filled with long talks and big dreams. Letters and visits stopped, and eventually, the noise and rush of life made it hard to keep in touch. It's strange how time can slip away so quietly that you hardly notice it's gone until you look back. But even as the days turn into months and then into years, I never forgot Felix Baumgartner. I never forgot the sparkle in his eyes when he talked about reaching for the sky. I held on to our conversations, to his determination, and to the hope I saw in him. Sometimes, when I was alone, I would think about that letter I wrote him and wonder if he still kept it. I wondered if my words meant anything to him, if they helped him when he needed strength. No matter how far away he was, a part of me always believed that Felix's journey was still unfolding, and that one day I would hear his name again. In all those years when Felix Baumgartner and I lost touch, I often found myself thinking about dreams, not just his, but mine too, and the dreams of so many people I'd known in my own life. You see, children, when I was young, I also had dreams that seemed impossible to everyone around me. I remember how, in my childhood, even simple wishes, like learning something new, traveling outside my town, or trying a different kind of work, seemed far-fetched to others. People would laugh or shake their heads. Why do you want to do that? They'd say. No one from here has ever tried such things. Be happy with what you have. But I always wondered, why shouldn't we try? Why shouldn't we hope for more? It wasn't just me either. I saw people throughout my life, friends, relatives, even my own children, who sometimes felt out of place because their ideas were different. Some wanted to become artists, some wanted to start new businesses, and some wanted to travel far and wide. At first, people around them doubted or even discouraged them, calling them foolish or unrealistic. But do you know what I learned? The world is changed by people who dare to dream differently. Almost every invention, every great discovery, and every wonderful change in history began with someone who was called a dreamer or even a little bit crazy. Those people didn't let others' doubt stop them. They kept going, and in the end, they inspired everyone. That's why I believed in Felix Baumgartner's dreams so much. I had seen that same light in him, the one that refuses to settle for good enough. My own mother once told me, never let anyone else decide what you can or cannot do. Listen to your heart and work hard for what you believe in. I tried to pass that same advice to Felix. So, children, when you hear someone say your dreams are too big or too strange, remember this. The world needs people who are brave enough to think differently. That's what moves us forward. That's what makes life exciting. And that's what makes stories like Felix Baumgartner's possible. One day, long after I'd last seen Felix Baumgartner, I heard his name again, this time on the news. They said he was working on something extraordinary, something no one had ever tried before. He wanted to become the first person to jump from the edge of space, breaking the sound barrier with nothing but his own body. I couldn't help but smile. It sounded just like the Felix the first remembered, always reaching higher, always dreaming bigger. But the road to that dream was not easy. Every time I read an article or watched a report about Felix Baumgartner, I learned a little more about the challenges he was facing. People doubted him. Some said it was too dangerous. Others said it was impossible. Even experts questioned if it could be done. Some days, even Felix himself must have wondered if he could really do it. He spent years preparing for this mission. There were endless hours of training, jumping from planes, working with scientists and engineers, learning about every risk and every detail. He had to keep his body strong and his mind even stronger. Every test jump brought new problems to solve. Sometimes things didn't go as planned. Equipment would fail, or the weather would ruin months of preparation. But Felix Baumgartner never gave up. He faced not just physical challenges, but fear as well. To stand on the edge of the unknown and look down, knowing you're about to do something that could change history or endanger your life, takes more courage than most people will ever know. But Felix remembered the lessons from his childhood, the words about courage and overcoming fear. Whenever he was interviewed, he spoke honestly about his worries. He admitted to being scared, to having doubts. But he always added, "I'm doing this not just for myself, but to show what humans are capable of if we believe in our dreams and keep moving forward." Through all the setbacks, all the late nights and early mornings, Felix Baumgartner kept going. Every obstacle he faced made his resolve stronger. And as his goal drew closer, I felt so proud, knowing that the boy I once knew was now an inspiration to people all over the world. One morning, the whole world seemed to be talking about just one person, Felix Baumgartner. Every channel on TV, every news headline, and every radio station was sharing the same story. They said today was the day Felix would try to make history by jumping from the edge of space. I remember how my heart started racing when I heard his name. It felt like time stopped for a moment. All those memories of him as a curious, bright-eyed boy came rushing back to me. I sat down in front of the TV and watched with the rest of the world, waiting and hoping. As the cameras showed Felix Baumgartner preparing for his jump, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and worry. I knew what he was about to do was dangerous, maybe even life-threatening. But I also knew this was the dream he had carried in his heart for so long. That day, I felt like my own son was about to achieve his dream. It was as if a piece of my own hopes and wishes were going up there with him. I wanted to reach through the screen, hold his hand, and tell him once more, "You can do this, Felix. You really can." I wasn't the only one watching. Millions of people around the globe were holding their breath, waiting to see if Felix Baumgartner could really go beyond what anyone thought was possible. Children, I'll never forget the day Felix Baumgartner made history. He was about to do something no human had ever done before. The plan was simple in words, but almost impossible in reality. Go higher than anyone ever had, and then jump alone from the edge of space. Early that day, I saw him on the television, preparing for the mission. Felix Baumgartner suited up, putting on his special pressurized suit, helmet, and gloves. He looked calm, but I knew deep inside he must have felt a storm of emotions, fear, excitement, doubt, and hope, all at once. You could see it in his eyes. He was determined to do this, no matter what. The cameras showed him stepping into the tiny capsule, which would carry him up, and up, almost 39 kilometers above the Earth. That's so high, children, that you can see the curve of our planet, and the sky is no longer blue, but black. Most people would feel faint just thinking about it, but Felix was ready. As the capsule rose, millions of people around the world watched every second. It took over 2 hours to reach the edge of space. Felix Baumgartner sat alone, his breath fogging up his visor, his heart pounding in his chest. He radioed back to his team, double-checked every system, and looked down at the world far, far below. There were experts and scientists, even old astronauts, who said this was impossible. No one can survive a jump from that height, they warned. The body can't handle the speed, the cold, or the thin air. But Felix never let those voices drown out his dream. Finally, the door of the capsule opened. Felix Baumgartner stood at the very edge, his feet dangling over the earth, his entire life behind him and all of human history watching. For a moment, he paused. He looked at the sky above and the world below and said, "Sometimes you have to go up really high to see how small you are." And then he jumped. For almost 5 minutes, Felix fell faster and faster, breaking the sound barrier with just his body. He spun through the air, the earth spinning beneath him. There was a moment when he started tumbling, and it seemed like things could go wrong, but Felix regained control, using everything he'd learned and every ounce of courage he had. When his parachute finally opened and he floated safely to the ground, the world erupted in cheers. Scientists, children, and ordinary people everywhere shouted with joy and relief. He had done the impossible. He had shown us all what can happen when you believe in your dreams and are brave enough to leap. That day, Felix Baumgartner didn't just make history. He inspired millions, including me. I sat there, proud and in awe, knowing I once told him, "If you can dream it, you can do it." And he did. After Felix Baumgartner's jump, the whole world was talking about him. News channels everywhere replayed the footage of his leap over and over again. People were amazed by his courage. Reporters called him a hero. Scientists, athletes, and even world leaders praised him for what he had achieved. His name became famous, and for many days, people talked about how he broke records, how he proved that humans can go farther than anyone ever thought possible. For me, sitting quietly in my own little home, I felt a deep joy that words can hardly explain. I watched people celebrate Felix Baumgartner and realized how special it was to see a dream actually come true. My heart filled with pride, not just because he made history, but because I remembered the little boy who used to sit and talk to me about his dreams. I remembered his questions, his doubts, and all those moments when he wondered if he could ever do something great. As I watched him standing there, smiling after his safe landing, I thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, my one piece of advice changed his life. Maybe the words I once wrote in that letter helped him keep going, even when things got hard. Maybe believing in someone, even in small ways, is more powerful than we realize. Felix Baumgartner showed the world what was possible, and I felt proud to have been a small part of his journey. After telling the story, I could see the wonder in your eyes. I knew you had questions, just like Felix Baumgartner always did. Sure enough, as soon as I finished, your hands shot up and your voices filled the room. Grandma, one of you asked, "Did you ever think Felix Baumgartner would do something so great? Did you know when he was a boy that he would become so famous?" I smiled at that question. No, dear, I didn't know. I could see he was special. But the truth is, nobody ever really knows what someone can achieve. Sometimes, even the quietest children or the ones with the wildest ideas surprise the whole world. All you can do is encourage them, believe in them, and remind them to keep going, even when things are tough. Another voice chimed in. Grandma, do you think Felix Baumgartner remembered you when he landed? Do you think he still had your letter? I shook my head gently. I don't know, dear. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Life takes people in different directions, and sometimes you lose touch. But what I do know is this. Sometimes even a small word, a kind gesture, or a bit of encouragement can change someone's whole life. You may never see the results, but your words can live on in someone's heart forever. You all grew quiet for a moment, thinking about that. Then another question came. Grandma, do you think we could ever do something that big? I looked at each of you and said, of course you can. Every person has something special inside them. You don't have to jump from space to be great. Sometimes being kind to a friend, helping someone who needs it, or working hard at something you care about can change the world in its own way. I shared more stories about people I knew who had chased their dreams, about family members who tried something new, even when others doubted them. Some succeeded in ways that made them famous. Others changed lives quietly in ways nobody ever heard about. But the important thing I told you is to keep believing in yourself and never be afraid to dream big. Felix Baumgartner's story is just one example. There are millions more out there, and maybe one day your story will inspire someone else, too. Now that you've heard Felix Baumgartner's story, I want you to remember something very important. In life, fear is our biggest enemy. Sometimes fear is so strong that it makes us believe we can't do something, or that we're not good enough, or that the world is too big for us. But the truth is, whoever defeats fear, whoever learns to move forward even when they are scared, can achieve anything. Felix Baumgartner's story proves that nothing is impossible if you really want it. He was just a curious, determined boy once, just like any of you. What made him different was not magic or luck. It was his courage to dream bigger than anyone around him, and his willingness to face his fears over and over again. Every time he felt doubt, every time the world said no, Felix answered with a little more effort, a little more faith, and a promise to himself not to give up. I want you to think about your own life. Maybe your dream isn't to jump from space. Maybe you want to become a doctor, a teacher, an artist, or simply someone who makes other people smile. No matter what it is, fear will try to get in your way. When it does, remember what Felix Baumgartner did. He looked fear right in the eye, listened to his heart, and took that leap. Don't let anyone tell you that your dreams are too big or too strange. The world is full of people who doubted the inventors, the explorers, and the helpers who made a difference. If everyone listened to their fears, nothing new would ever happen. Every new idea starts with someone daring to ask, what if? I've seen it in my own life, too. I've watched friends and family members work hard to build something new, even when it seemed impossible. Some faced failure many times before they succeeded. Others achieved their goals in ways nobody expected. But the ones who made a real difference were the ones who kept going, who believed in themselves, and who weren't afraid to try again, even after making mistakes. Always remember, dream big, believe in yourself, and never think a good word is too small to matter. Sometimes a simple sentence, a bit of encouragement, a piece of advice, or a reminder to be brave can be the spark that changes someone's life forever. You never know whose heart you might touch with your words, just as I hope I touched Felix's. So, my dear children, carry these lessons with you. Don't let fear stop you. Keep moving forward, keep believing, and keep encouraging others. You all have something special inside you. Just like Felix Baumgartner, you can do incredible things if you just dare to try. As I finish this story, children, I want to leave you with a prayer from my heart. My wish is that each of you brings light to someone's life, just like Felix Baumgartner did, not just by doing something big, but by being brave, by dreaming, and by working hard no matter what. I hope that whenever you feel afraid or uncertain, you remember Felix's courage and the simple message I tried to give him, that you are capable of so much more than you think. Don't let fear decide what you do. Instead, listen to your heart and take those small steps toward your dream, even when it feels difficult. If you ever get the chance to encourage someone else, never hold back your kind words. Sometimes your advice or your support will be the reason someone finds the courage to do something amazing. So, my dear children, I pray that you always stand up for your dreams and help others stand up for theirs. Be strong, be kind, be brave. The world is waiting for you. As I looked at you, I saw the spark in your eyes. And you all said together, we will try, Grandma. And that, my dear ones, is all I could ever hope for.